So starting. Oh, it started. Holy shit
Live.
balls. We are live. All right, my
Live.
friends. This is Garrett J. White, the Master Coach Mentor. Welcome to Wake Up TV. This is episode numero ocho. Not to be confused with Calle Ocho or La Camina Ocho or any other ocho up in there. Cinco de Ocho, which isn't even like a 5 to 8. I don't even know what that would be. Anyways, this is Garrett J. White, Master Coach Mentor. Excited to have you here, part of Wake Up TV. Like we do every single week, I'm going to bring us in with a guest today, somebody who's going to blow your mind and your soul. And at the same time, we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to talk about how this most spiritual conversation I've likely had in the past 2 years of my life happened over Heineken in a bar in Washington, D.C., where I met today's guest. And he might have been doing a dance on the table. I don't know. We're going to find out. So you're going to have to stick with us as we get into a little introduction on that side. On the flip side, though, for those who are joining in live with us here, if you've not downloaded the Wake Up Warrior app and you'd like access to Wake Up TV, you'd like access to get into the radio show, M3 Radio, all the other things we're doing every single week, the daily Wake Up WOD, the daily rant, and the Sunday sermon, content for warriors just like you, teaching you how to, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, be more, do more, suck less. I wish I could do like really cool pec flex. And if I could, I would like make it bounce like that. Maybe we'll throw some special effects in video. So if you haven't gotten the app, take advantage of it. This show, like last week's show and like next week's show, will be available inside that app with special tips, tricks, and notes, as well as special content only available to our app users. So get on over to the iTunes or Google Play Store and download that today. Now, our guest, no bullshit, probably one of the most powerful coaches I've ever had in my life. Yes, it's not too often actually going to bring a guest onto the show who is both a friend, a brother, and a mentor, who leads and guides, and somebody who I invest a ton of money into every single month, and really taking my business, taking my life, and taking my mindset to a whole nother level. So when I reached out and asked him, I said, hey, listen, I know that we're breaking some mentor-mentee, code of conduct by requesting you to be on here, but, Jesse Elder, if you have not made yourself familiar with him, by the time we're done today, you're going to know who he is. And I would encourage you that at any time during this conversation that you feel inclined to reach out to Jesse on Facebook and or to participate in any of the things that he's up to, I would say go for it. I'm one of a few people who participate in an inner circle with him in a really, really, really big way. And if you follow me at all, you know that I don't fuck around when it comes to my mentors. They're not cheap. They are badass, and they're worth every single ounce of it. Jesse and Kevin Nations have both been the two who have led me over the last 12 months. So that being said, there's a couple interesting things about Jesse. We're going to ask him a question here in a second to start us off on today's call, like we do every single time, which is, who is Jesse? But there's two things I will say about Jesse. Number one, the man can do splits. Like, not like kind of splits. He can do like the splits you saw with Van Damme on the cars, the Volvos driving down the freeway, the big commercial everybody was all excited about, and then the mockery one that happened just a couple weeks later on the airplanes with the pigeons on top. Jesse can literally do that shit. Like, I'm looking at a video a couple weeks ago, and he's doing an entire presentation holding a microphone in the sideways splits, Van Damme style. Second thing I can tell you is that I haven't been around a man who is as good at business and life and as consciously present as he is. And that's what led to our conversation of how I actually met Jesse. I was speaking at an event called The Underground, which is actually going on right now, but it was last year's event, or it just happened this last weekend, and I was there a year ago. So Jesse and I have known each other for a year, and had a really intense experience sitting literally having some Heinekens. And we'll talk about that in a second after Jesse answers the first question of the show, which is, who is Jesse Elder, and why is his beard so amazing?
Garrett, what an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be sharing this space with you and with everybody on Wake Up Warrior TV. To answer the beard question first, I'm going to tell you one of the most miraculous substances in the universe. It's good for women and men, especially good for women and men who get together, if you know what I mean. Coconut oil. Coconut oil is a miracle, and it's good on all sorts of uses. I'll leave it to the imagination of our listeners and viewers to take it there. But you put a little coconut oil on this beast, and it feeds it, takes care of it. So there's your first takeaway. I don't know how much that takeaway is, but we're like 3 minutes in, and already.
I mean, this is why you come. You come to, if you have face, if you had back hair, would coconut oil work on back hair if you wanted to groom it? I'm assuming you wanted to groom it.
I can't speak from personal experience, but being that coconut oil is like God's gift to humanity, I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't do any harm to back hair at all.
Would this have a man be less inclined to trim the forest?
Wow, that really is a personal preference, and I think it probably depends on who else is in that man's life and what her personal preference is.
Okay, I got it. Well, I can tell you right now, there are no Amazon jungles allowed in my country, if we want to call it that. The facial hair, though, I try to grow it out here. I can only get about 5 or 6 days before it just becomes crazy and I shave it off. Is the coconut oil why you're able to continue to grow the beard? That's the first question. Continue to maintain it. Is that one of the reasons?
One of many reasons, Garrett. Also, when I was fighting MMA years ago, I used to have long hair. I used to have a ponytail until the day after my very first no-holds-barred fight, where since there's no rules, literally you can scratch and eye gouge an elbow and pull hair. I found out that my ponytail very quickly went from being an asset in my social life to a liability on the mat. So the next day after I fought this dude who was trying to pull my hair while I'm trying to submit him, I said, cut it. And I've just enjoyed this kind of look for a long time. But I really got this one, and the reason this one stays, quite frankly, between you and me and the million people that are going to listen to this, it's kind of like when a guy gets a compliment on a shirt from a woman. A woman says, wow, nice shirt. And what do we do as dudes? We wear that fucking shirt for like the rest of our lives. So Suffice it to say that there have been just enough beautiful hands that have touched this beard to make me realize that it's probably something I'm going to keep for a while.
Okay. So let me go ahead and translate that for the warriors out there who might be watching this. What that really means is Jesse gets laid when he has the beard, and it's in a very deep and passionate way. Well, okay, all right. So I'm going to keep growing mine. We're going to see what happens. A little coconut oil on the back as well as the beard, and we'll see if my metrics improve. Now, dude.
It's all about split testing. You just got to split test that shit.
With split testing, we will be doing. Dude, the picture we used a picture of you to promote the show, and we'll use it. It'll be in the archives forever. We'll be using this picture of you, and this picture's actually become quite popular of you, not just for what we were doing with the show. Like, I've noticed that they're using it. People are using it in different publications. I think there's actually some articles that are being done and written up about you in different magazines, and it's become kind of a brand shot for you, which was this picture of you in the desert with your beard with dirt on it. Talk a little bit about this, because if anybody is familiar with you, goes to your sites at jesseelder.com or to your Facebook pages, they're going to see this picture. And they're also going to see a couple others with you in the big signage, Believe, and you're doing like this crazy shit. I thought you had made, I didn't even think that was a real picture at first, and then I recognized after I got to know you that it was, which I think is very relevant to where we're going today with our topic today in today's show being beingness, and how our beingness or our spiritual power actually connects to our physicality. And you hear it, if you're listening as a listener, you hear we've got a martial artist on our hands who could seriously kick my ass. He squeezes me, and I'm like, holy shit, like no joke, like he's done a few little, and I'm like, and you're like, how's it possible that you could do this with where, like, just how's it possible? Second thing is the beingness in its conversation to business as well as to relationships. And you've got a very, very powerful story. So this picture has significance. I think it sets up our conversation for today and really positions who you've become and who you're being today and who you are as a mentor for me, who you are being for me in assisting whole space. So talk a little bit about that picture and about the adventures that have gone around that picture and how that even came to be.
Sure. Well, I'm really glad that you brought up that picture, because that picture actually is a perfect answer to your other question. Your first question being the coconut oil. I think we covered that. Second question is, who am I? And that picture was taken in late summer of 2013. So at the time of this recording, about less than a year. I mean, that picture was taken at Burning Man, and a lot of people say, well, how did you get a photographer out there and all of that? And I did, a friend of mine is a top-level fashion photographer. He did go with me, but that was actually a selfie taken with my phone, and the fire that you see in the background is the ruins of this fire that happened the night before. So how I got there and how that picture came to be really is a result of my life's focus. And as long as I can remember, ever since I've been a kid, I have been an absolute student and a fan and a teacher of direct experience of life. direct experience, not other people's experience, not other people's ideas or other people's stories. You can learn from that and leverage from that and certainly shortcut your way through life by taking advice from people who've been there, done that. But ultimately it comes down to your direct experience of life. And so I made a choice when I was very young that I wanted as much life experience as possible. And part of that comes from being the oldest of 5 in a homeschooled family growing up in South Texas. And I was the only white kid for miles around, and nothing, I mean, that's an awesome thing. And it just helped me to really understand and to observe people. And it helped me to really understand, like I just wanted to know. Like I've just always had this insane curiosity. I just want to know. I just want to know why. Like, why do people do what they do? How come I can't get results that I wanted for so long? How come it seems like no matter how abundant people have it in their life, they still can find reason to bitch and moan? Like, what's the deal? I never really understood that. And so my entire life has been about seeking out experiences so that I can do one of 3 things or all 3 things. And so my message comes down to 3 things. It comes down to gain, it comes down to growth, and it comes down to giving. And I think that those 3 things in that order are really important. And it's important to give, but you can only give what you've got. You can only give what you've got to give. And so one of the more radical ideas that I teach is that I don't believe in self-sacrifice whatsoever. Not a bit. I don't believe in self-sacrifice. I think it's actually a form of cannibalism. It's a form of eating away at your spirit, your mind, your body, your soul, if you're going to give away in order to then help other people. I do, however, believe in radically increasing abundance in your life in the areas that matter to you. And that's what you do such a great job of, and everybody that works with you. And you can just see such a common theme out of everybody that kind of orbits Planet Garrett. Everybody resonates with the same message about body and being and balance and business, because those are holistic things that attach themselves to every single human being's life. So I'm not saying that we should never sacrifice, but self-sacrifice, the idea of making yourself less than so that you can then go help somebody else, I think it's total bullshit. And I think that if everybody in the world were to take care of themselves first, and then based on their increases in strength, their increases in understanding, their increased personal growth, well, they're going to be able to nourish and guide and lead and uplift everybody else in their life. And if people are writing this down and taking notes, I'd strongly suggest to write this down. The greatest gift that you can give others is the gift of your own happiness.
Okay.
Everything else is irrelevant if you're not whole and happy.
So the happiness that you're talking about, come back. Like, dude, you just blasted like 27 different angles within simplicity, explaining it, of depth, stuff that back in the day I would have missed, that I think is so crucial to foundation of our conversation today, but also just a foundation of the movement you're leading, the impact that you have on me, the impact you have on so many in your programs and so many who run with you. Come back up for a second really quickly and link for me a couple things. Number one, you speak to this idea that you live from a place in which experience is what matters. Right, that you're searching for experience. In your story, maybe you can link this a little bit to your story as a kid and growing up, because your story is fascinating to me. It's what ultimately led you into martial arts, which led you, your business success in the martial arts industry is what, it was the anchor connected to the beingness of who you were that night that we met. It was those 2 things. Without one of those 2, we wouldn't have engaged the way that we engaged. We probably wouldn't have the relationship we have today. So it was 2. So take that experience conversation. Why do you feel that the greatest form of learning, the only form of learning, is through our own experience? And then maybe relate that to the experiences that led you to not only becoming an epic martial artist, but a badass businessman, and then ultimately having one of the greatest students that you've ever had in your entire life. Might be a man by the name of Garrett J. White. All right, let's go.
His skill is only matched by his humility. So to pull that together, direct experience of life, that means, at the end of the day, words don't teach. Experiences are what teach. And so that's why 90% or more of the so-called gurus out there are totally full of bullshit, because all they have is some fancy words. They can move people emotionally with those words, but unless somebody has an experience, unless somebody has a visceral, sensational experience from the inside out, no amount of outside learning and language is going to make a difference. And so I really got that when I was a kid and I was growing up, and I've never been to school. I didn't go to high school. I didn't go to college, didn't get my GED. And my deal was always, I mean, my dad was a genius, still is a genius, and he did something so smart that I didn't even recognize until decades later when I started studying psychology and human influence. My dad, who ironically was a career school teacher, and we were homeschooled, he would bring home these stacks of books. And I remember like being 7, 8 years old, and my dad would put all these books on the table, and he would say, Jesse, you read whatever you want, and he'd walk away. And Garrett, I remember feeling so free as a kid, like, well, holy shit, nobody's telling me what to, I can do anything I want. And I would go through books, and some would interest me, some wouldn't. And it wasn't until decades later that I realized what a fucking genius he was, because he put the choice and the power of choice in my hands. So I never felt any sort of restriction. But at the same time, at the meta level, he was guiding what those choices were. So I never felt manipulated or influenced to learn shit that didn't have relevance to me. And as a result, my love of learning and my passion for experience has just continued to resonate and multiply throughout my life. But I remember I talked to him years ago when I figured out what he did. And I said, Dad, that was a pretty good stunt. You know, you're putting all these books on the table, and then you say, I can read whatever I want. Well, seriously? I mean, I was 7 years old. I mean, the Iliad and the Odyssey? Come on. But he forced me, by giving me those choices, he forced me to up my game. And it wasn't like I had any other option. So that whole idea about that words don't teach, experiences are what teach, that's what ultimately led me with fascination of martial arts, and being this, you know, at the time 9 years old, and this totally shy, skinny kid who was totally geeky and nerdy. Nothing's really changed. I mean, I'm still skinny, I'm still geeky, I'm still nerdy. I just have some more life experience behind it. But the idea is that I got into martial arts and I was fucking hooked. Like in the first couple of weeks, I was into it. I was 9 years old and like, and I was just feeling like so empowered. I probably sucked terribly, but my instructors are awesome enough not to let me know that. They were kind enough to hide me from my own insecurity and my own inadequacy, and eventually I actually became pretty good. So when I was 15 years old, started helping out in class. By the time I was 16, I was teaching class. And when I was 17, I told my parents, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And again, to their credit, there was very little pushback. And so I look back now, and that path, or that experience, for those of you that are listening to this and your parents, the best thing you can do is create riverbanks for your kids, just so that they don't go too far outside and end up hurting themselves. But let them have experience. If you've got kids 2, 3, 4 years old and they want to go climb on the ladder or climb on the jungle gym, let them climb and let them fall. And when they fall, because they're going to, and when they skin their knee, and they're going to, don't flip out. Don't be one of these fucking helicopter parents that prevents your kids from having experience in the name of love, because that's not love. That's actually your need that you're projecting onto your kids. Your kids are not there for your purpose. Your kids don't exist to satisfy your emotional needs in life. Your
Okay.
kids.
Hold on. So come back here for me for a second. So if I'm listening to this, now I'm listening to this through my ears, and I'm thinking of an experience I had yesterday at the beach with my daughter. My wife is freaking out because she was climbing up on these rocks, and I kept telling her, I said, listen, don't go up this path. I was like, it's private property up there. Just, you know, if you're going to climb over here. And I was getting nervous because she was climbing up these pretty high rocks. Finally, I just broke. My way was like not working anymore. She wasn't listening. And I was just like, hey, you know, if you fall, you're going to fall. I was like, just know if you fall, I'm here. But if you don't fall, that'd be great too. Like, just climb. And my wife was freaking out. I'm like, and she's like, she's going to fall and break her leg. And I was like, and if she does fucking fall and break her leg, then we'll take her to the hospital and we'll get her cast and we'll sign it. And I'm sure that'll be a new experience too. What advice would you give to, I know that wasn't necessarily a direct conversation to have a balanced conversation today, but you brought it into a space. I don't think beingness is a fun topic because there's nothing it doesn't affect. Two things on this. Number one, if I'm a parent, I'm a warrior man, warrior woman, I'm watching the show, and I'm wanting to implement more of this into my family life with my children, what suggestions can you give? Because in my case, my kids go to a school, private school. They go to school every day, so I'm not homeschooling them every day. My wife would probably kill and eat my children if they were home all day long. So, like, what suggestions can you give for living this practically, or maybe some tips or tricks that you've seen over the years that might be useful for that, outside of dropping the Iliad on their kids at 7 years old? I think you're a gifted man. So for the less gifted, maybe. What do you think?
Well, and that's a perfect segue. What it really comes down to is, I mean, we'll take it to a bigger level and then drop it down to some pure tactics for people,
Cool.
which by the way is just an extension of your beingness. I mean, when the more clear you are at who you are, the more clear you know yourself and your purpose on this planet and what it is that you're here for in the first place in this time that we have from birth until death. If you know why you're here, then that's going to show up in every role of your life as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a spouse, as a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. That beingness is not going to be muted. You won't be able to shut it off. You know, the poet Rumi had this beautiful quote. He said, "Who you are speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." So it doesn't matter what role we define ourselves in within society, your beingness is what's shining through. So I just wanted to bring that in, that
Awesome.
I agree with you. It's not an either or conversation. It's just different facets of you. So to think about it in a bigger picture, what's your purpose as a parent? I mean, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, you know, I want to hear some tactics. Like I want to hear, like, what is it that I need to do? What do I need to say as a parent that's going to give my kids this foundation of self-reliance and allow them to be the best human being they're capable of being? Okay, well, you got to start by asking yourself, what's my purpose as a parent? And a lot of people as a parent would say, well, my job is to love my kids. Okay, well, then you have to know really, what is love? Love is a single syllable that we use in the English language that is probably the most fucked up understanding that people have no idea what it really means. They have a feeling, an idea, but anyway, we need like a 3-day seminar. Can we just like extend this?
This will be well, this is an official announcement of the 3-day seminar sometime into the future. For now, we're giving you the little sample. Jesse, drug dealer, he's giving you a little sample, just like he did me in a bar in DC here about a year ago. Next thing I know, I was sending him a lot of money. So it was good. You're getting the initial drug hit. I went through this. Stick with us. You can become addicted to Jesse too.
This is the gateway conversation.
That's right. We're at the gateway. If there was officially a sign on the road, it would say gateway right here. And speaking of gateway for a second, one of the things I want to point out, Jesse has some tips and tricks that he gives out every single day, short little videos, a minute to a minute and a half. Used to do those directly on his Facebook page, no longer doing that there as actively. What is happening, though, if you head over to jesseelder.com, you can find an option there to actually follow along with a daily digestible 60 to 90 second mastery video. Why don't you spend 30 seconds, talk about that real quick, and then I'll swing us back around to the conversation.
Perfect. So yeah, the video series is called the Mind Vitamin video series, and my hope is that eventually that there's hundreds and thousands of people who have something of value to say that end up creating mind vitamins. So I've intentionally not trademarked that. I'm sure I'm not the first person ever to put those two words together, because I think we all have mind vitamins to deliver. But these are Jesse Elder's mind vitamins. So at jesseelder.com, you'll find a couple of dozen videos up there that are all just completely intuitive. They're completely inspired. They're all first take. There's not any script or anything that's written for these. It's just me and my phone, with the exception of one video, which we won't do again. All the videos are just on my phone, and it's just my take on life. And the first one was done back in September, actually about a month before you came to the lair, before you came down here to Texas. I'd done that first video, and you helped me tremendously in thinking through how I wanted to purpose that, not just to be, kind of in the ether with all these ideas, but actually reach more people. So I appreciate your conversations to me around that. And so the Mind Vitamin videos just came as kind of a labor of love. I've been involved in for several years at coaching people who were already extremely successful in their life and who had a lot of momentum going, because I'm the coach that people would come to when they're already going 600 miles an hour, and we can have one conversation that just shifts a little bit. And with that amount of momentum and that amount of energy, it's very easy to get rid of the resistance, clear the energy, all of that. So the Mind Vitamin videos were the first thing that I'd ever done that was really designed for anybody who had a desire to upgrade their life. Anybody who had a desire to go from where they are to where they want to be, and to do it easily, effortlessly, simply by understanding the power of their own mind and the power of their own focus. So that's why we call them Mind Vitamin videos. And we've got people in 21 countries that have messaged in saying what a difference those videos have made for them. And truthfully, man, that's what fires me up. And that's what keeps me up messaging people, just like it does you. Keeps me up 2 o'clock in the morning, answering questions about relationships, about money, about sex, about all these kind of things. So again, you've inspired me a lot in that respect.
You got it. Yeah. Well, anybody who's got any kind of message, I mean, shit. The iPhone. Steve Jobs was a prophet, as far as I'm concerned, and prophetic in his ways. People give me shit all the time. They're like, "Well, he wasn't Moses," and I'm like, "Listen, dude. Moses was a man, and Steve Jobs was a man, and I'm gonna tell you right now, both of them good men, both powerful, both called from God, both doing big things. Without the iPhone, truth is, Daily Watt, all the other stuff I'm doing, Mind Vitams, all the stuff. Without Mac products, we're not doing these video streams that we're doing right now here on this Google Hangout. So." Beautiful there. So check out the Mind Vitamins videos. Get yourself on Jesse's list. Head on over to jesseelder.com. And you can get yourself a little mind vitamin action. And he started a little movement there. I've watched tons of people sharing those same messages, learning how to what we call virtual journaling, sharing their tidbits of wisdom that God's leading and giving them through this point of experience. Now let's come back, Jesse. You went up high with us, how you need to understand who you are, and then you said you need to got to understand about where you are as a parent, like what is your purpose and role as parenting. And we were coming back down to some practical kind of maybe how-tos, one or two little tidbits for parents who maybe aren't homeschooling their kids, or maybe they are, who of ways to start opening the game up and let go of the helicopter mom, helicopter dad strategy and give their kids a chance to live. So let's roll from there.
Good. So real quick tactic, and this tactic, the only last thing I want to say is that the tactics work to the degree you understand your purpose. If somebody's confused about their purpose as a parent, these tactics are going to be worthless. Just like you teach somebody marketing who hasn't got their core message down. Having great marketing and a shitty message, all it does is what? Speed up how quickly people find out how much you suck. That's all it does. So you've got to understand your purpose as a parent, and the tactic that I'm about to share is for those parents who believe that their job is to prepare their children to live a successful, happy, abundant life, and to prepare them for that life as early as possible. And that's a very unique concept in the Western culture. It's somewhat more popular in the Eastern culture. But the native cultures all across the world for millions of years understood that was their job, is not to raise their kids so their kids are going to take care of them someday. That wasn't on the radar until the 1920s or 30s. So this whole concept of if my job as a parent is to prepare my kids to live the life that they were born to live as soon as possible, then here's the tactic. The tactic is, and I remember this happened with my stepdaughter at the time. Her name is Paige, and she was young, maybe 3-4 years old, and she's climbing on this jungle gym. And I've got her out. We're just going for a walk out in the park, daddy-daughter time, and I see her climbing up this thing. And I kind of, was just kind of admiring the day, and I look, and all of a sudden she's like 5 feet up in the air, which, for a 4 and 5 year or a 3-4 year old is pretty elevated. So she's holding on to, I don't know if you guys can see, she's holding on to the thing here like this, and she's on the little run, and she turns around, she looks at me, she goes, "Dad, look!" And right as I turn and I look, and I see this little girl let go and jump off, and my heart was in my throat. Like I'm seeing her little body fall to the ground. She hits the ground, just collapses, and my immediate impulse is to rush over there and comfort her. But I didn't. And I recognize that this is going to be a painful moment for both of us, but pain is what gets your attention, right? It's at the moments of pain that you have an opportunity to really shift and really grow. So I see her fall. I see her hit her knee. Her knee is skin wide open. Blood is starting to flow. And I'm just being a rock, and I'm just standing there. And she fell. She skins her knee. She looks up at me, and she looks back at her knee and starts, already what happens. When a child sees blood, she starts freaking out. Mm-hmm. So I interrupted her pattern, and I yelled at her. And I yelled, "Paige!" She goes from crying about the knee to like that. And then I just told her, "Stand up." She stands up. Garrett, the moment she's standing, I ran to her, picked her up in my arms, hugged her as tight as I could, and I said, "I'm so proud of you for standing up." Because I wanted her to get the message that you're not going to get sympathy and love for being hurt. I don't want her being 14, 15, 16 years old and needing to appear weak or wounded in order to have the attention of another person, specifically a teenage boy. I wanted her to have the experience of getting love and attention and affection for being self-reliant. So the hug wasn't because she got hurt. If I would have hugged her 3 seconds earlier, it would have been. But the speed that the brain operates at, the speed that our brain just makes decisions about what do things mean in our world, happens incredibly fast, microseconds. So the fact that she fell, skinned her knee, and didn't receive any attention or any love or anything in that moment, and all of a sudden she got her pattern interrupted, she stood up, really in response to me yelling to her to stand up. But when she stood up, and then comes the hug, and then comes the language, and then comes all of that love and that energy about why she's getting this love, why is she receiving this attention. I'm so proud of you for standing up. And over the next 10 years, I watched her just continue to grow and to blossom into this incredibly confident, radiant, beautiful, very verbose, completely comfortable with people in all different areas of life. And I know it didn't come down to that one experience. She has an amazingly strong mother, and she has amazingly strong people in her life. But it's those types of tactics, if we want to call it that, that as a parent or anybody in a leadership position, don't reward people for being weak. Reward them for moving in the direction of their strength.
Huge. So two things coming back as I'm hearing this. You said something. You said, you know, we had to, the pain I was in and the pain my child was in, that there was a transcendent experience to being able to process that pain. Because I've experienced both sides. I've experienced the side where my child, my stress levels are high, my patience is low, my vision is contracted. What I see as a parent is, I will fucking control you right now and throw you in your room. Ah, damn it, right? And then there's the other side of more patience, more peace, kind of standing back. Now, all of this in my experience has come back to doing the work on me. Now, I guess my question for you is your capacity in that moment to sit and to hold that space. I watch you sit and you just hold space all the time. And that the bar that I met you in the very first time, you and I were sitting down, we were having a Heineken. I think I was having a Heineken. I don't remember what you were having. We were having a Heineken, I think.
Actually, I don't think either one of us had anything that night. I didn't have anything that night. You weren't drinking anything. So then maybe the Heinekens came before or after. But that conversation I remember specifically because of the video that I sent you and you sent me back, that it was the most conscious conversation at the bar.
At the bar, ever. And it started a group that started to come around us in this conversation that we were having. I just remember sitting there, and I just remember having it. We weren't drinking. I was like having a beer, and we were sitting there, and we were talking in the bar, and this conversation starts and it goes, and it came back to the same experience I was having with you, which I didn't get to have with too many people too often, which was this space. Now, that same space you were holding in the bar with me is the same space that you were holding with your daughter when she was 4. It's the same space I watch you hold for your clients. The same space I watch you hold from stage in the splits at the internet marketing party, doing our seminar, doing the microphone talk and speech while you're in the splits the whole time. What is the key in your world? Like, what are the disciplines and the mindset and skill set side of beingness to you? Because you emulate it and you live it so effortlessly in life and in business and in fitness and in everything that you do. There's such a consistency and a harmony to this in how you live it. Back up to how maybe that started, and then what are the current mindsets and skill sets that allow you to continue to hold the space when shit's going wrong, when shit's falling apart, when you're in a bar talking to a crazy dude like me who ripped the crotch of his pants open on stage during a presentation, that's a story for another day. Yeah, to win the speakers competition with a hole in my crotch. So talk to me, dude. Give us, this is where we get to spend some time in this, because our topic today is beingness. And I have a lot of examples of people who are very spiritual, but I don't have a lot of examples in my life of people who are this fucking powerful as you are, and at the same time kicking ass in every area. I have a lot of people who, when I'm around them, I feel very good. But they're in poverty in business, they're in poverty in their relationships, they're overweight, they're not having it all. They don't represent the Warriors way, though I love on them for what I feel. You emulate the Warriors way, which is completely having it all. You're not just fucking powerful, it's like you're powerful and all of your life has folded. So from this point, I'm going to shut my mouth and I just want you to go off and be you and do your teaching here on because it served me, and I wanted to serve our followers and our viewers. And again, as Jesse goes into this, I would encourage you to look at two things as you're listening. Number one, there's going to be the words he's going to say. You're going to hear some really intense language. You're going to meaning just really powerful words. You're going to hear some cool concepts. And he and I have not pre-scripted this. I just know, having been around him for the past 6 months. The second thing is I want you to feel with what's going on inside you, right? Like, I get it just having him here on the show. Like, it increases my vibration. My nervous system starts to, right? So you're going to have that experience. And my encouragement for you is, if you feel this and you're an entrepreneur who is moving at the speed of light, like I am, and you're just blazing, that Jesse might be somebody who you get to have in your world as a guiding point. Somebody just to keep you that 1 degree, because that's all it is. For me, it's a 1 degree, but 1 degree for guys that are moving fast is the difference between empires fucking burning and empires exploding and going to global movement. So, Jesse, talk to us. Beingness, mindsets, skill sets, and I'm just going to sit back here and take some notes as you're going.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Garrett. And what's coming up for me as you're talking about all of this, and even hearing, to hear your own life described by someone who you like and you love and you respect is a really awesome experience. So I appreciate that. And if there's one thing that it really comes down to, is that I have been absolutely blessed at going through some pain that I wouldn't have wished on my worst enemy. And there's 3 experiences in my life that really stand out as turning points. And I look back at those experiences, and those experiences certainly had the power to crush me. But because of that, they also gave me an opportunity to make a defining choice. And again, if people are listening to this and you're writing this down, not if you're listening to a replay later on in your car, but if you're listening to this and you can't write this down, life gives you defining moments. And it's during those defining moments that we can make choices about how our life is going to be. And the first defining moment for me that I remember, we were living in the valley in Texas, not your valley in California, but South Texas. My dad had taken a leave of absence from his job as a school teacher, and he went to go work as a director of a halfway house for Central American refugees. So this is during the early 80s, like 83, 84. And at that time, just the world was in a way where there's a lot of stuff happening in Central America, similar to what we saw in Rwanda in the 90s, where there's millions of people being slaughtered. Not quite on the scale of the concentration camps of World War II, but there's hundreds of thousands of people being literally just driven from their homes and tortured and killed because of the political regime and the things that were going on. Being that Central America is pretty much in America's backyard, a lot of them came north, and a lot of them were trying to seek asylum and seek refuge in this country. So my dad took this job. It was paid for by the Catholic diocese down there. This shelter is called Casa Romero, after an archbishop in Central America who was gunned down at the altar. He was delivering mass on a Sunday. This death squad came in and shot him down at the pulpit. So this shelter was named after him, and my dad was the director. So growing up there and spending time with kids my age who were missing fingers because they'd been tortured in front of their parents really gave me a different empathy for the world. It made me realize that the world was a lot bigger than I saw on TV or even that I read about. And one of the things that happened, because my dad is running this shelter, part of his job that he accepted was helping people get to the bus stop so that they could go north where they had friends and family. And of course, they were all undocumented. Not one of them had papers. So as it turns out, one of them got caught by the Border Patrol, said, yeah, I got a ride from Jack Elder. And next thing we know, my mom's asking me, do you know what the word indictment means? And I was 11 years old. I didn't know what the word indictment means. She said, your dad has been indicted for aiding and abetting illegal aliens. And what that eventually led to was me sitting in a courtroom being 11 years old and hearing my father convicted on 16 counts of aiding and abetting illegal aliens. And each count carried a penalty of federal prison of 7 years. So I did the math sitting there in that courtroom that day, hearing each of those 16 counts delivered. And looking back, I realized that that's the day that I grew up emotionally. That's the day that I became an adult, because in my mind, what that meant is that I was the one now that had to take care of my dad, or take care of my mom, and take care of my 3 brothers, and take care of my sister. As it turns out, he didn't get sentenced to a lifetime in federal prison. He actually ended up getting 5.5 months in a halfway house back in San Antonio, where we were originally from. So it worked out beautifully. But I didn't know that at the time, and that really forced me to think about how the rest of my life was going to be. And even though he didn't end up having to go through with that consequence, that lesson taught me at a very deep level that some things in life are worth everything, and you have a choice to either follow or not follow what's in your heart to do. My dad was doing that because it was his absolute conviction, it was his absolute knowing that he had a job to do, and he was even willing to risk his role in the family. He was willing to risk everything if it meant doing the right thing. So that was a defining moment for me, and it helped me to really completely sidestep any sort of low-level criticism, any sort of opinion or advice that I felt was unwarranted or unjust or undeserved. And it really made me not give a shit about what people thought about me. If I knew it was right, if I felt it was for the higher good, it didn't fucking matter. I didn't care what anybody else thought of me. So that was defining moment number 1. Defining moment number 2 happened when I was 21, 22 years old. It was the brokest summer of my life, and it was super hot that summer. And I remember why it was so hot, because I didn't have any money, and I was rooming in this upstairs room with a bunch of friends. Because I was the brokest, I had the cheapest room, and it's like South Texas during the summer, 100 and something degrees even at night. So I pulled this old mattress over by the window just to get some fresh air. And I was totally broke, totally frustrated, completely unhappy with my life. And I had this dream of one day opening a karate school, but it wasn't happening. No matter what I tried, it just seemed like it would just, every turn was just met with resistance. And I'd read a ton of personal development books, and it just wasn't working. So one of the things that I did to deal with my frustration and my anger, and also to try and raise some money, is I decided to start competing in these fights. So every Thursday night, I'd go to this little club called Sneakers Nightclub in San Antonio, and they roll a mat out onto the dance floor, and I'd walk out on the dance floor, and I'd fight in these no-holds-barred fights. And these were no rules, no weight division. There was basically only one requirement, is that you could sign your name on the waiver and the release of liability. And you'd think that some of these guys would, in addition to that, be able to fight. Not always the case. So there were some real awesome guys that fought, and there were some guys that were just like one step up from street brawler, who actually sometimes are the most dangerous. But I ended up fighting 7 weeks in a row and winning every single fight. So it comes down to this championship match, and there's a couple $100 on the line for this match, $250, which would have changed my life back then, because it would have allowed me to pay rent for a couple of months. It would have boosted my confidence. Plus, I'd be the winner of the entire match. What I didn't know is that the guy that I was going to fight was 50 pounds heavier than me and had watched me fight every week. So we touch gloves. We go into the middle of the match, and I'm already knowing what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot in. I'm going to take him down so I can use leverage and use grappling skills, which were better than his, so I could submit him. We go, he fires this bomb at my head, I shoot in, clinch, I'm ready to take him down, but no matter what is happening, no matter how much I try and get him down, I can't. And it hit me why. He'd watched me fight every week. And so what his corner man did to prevent my takedown is they covered this guy's body in Vaseline. They coated his entire body in petroleum jelly. So I'm like smelling it now that I'm shot in. It's too late, and technically it wasn't against the rules because there weren't any. So I ended up spending the next 15 minutes trying to take this guy down unsuccessfully, getting more and more tired, and the worst part is that I'm absorbing shots from him every time I try and take him down. So I mean, everybody was there. There's hundreds of people watching this championship match. My family was there, my brothers, I had students there, and they're just watching this just appalled. And as the minutes tick down in this fight, and they just watched me get torn apart. And I could have quit a million times during that fight, and I couldn't quit. Like I felt an obligation to the people that came out to watch me and to watch this fight, and I was determined to give it to them. So I put on the best show I could. At the end, they raised his hand. I go and I sit down in my corner. My corner man comes to me, and I told him, I said, something's wrong. Like I can't, like something's wrong with my body. And Garrett, it's like if you take a coffee stirrer and you try and breathe through that coffee stirrer. That's what it felt like. And I mean, I felt like a truck was parked on my chest, and I was like fighting for every sip of oxygen. So they take me to the hospital. They rush me through. They get X-rays, and I'm sitting there, and the doctor comes in. He tells me something I never thought that I would hear. He tells me, he said, "Mr. Elder, the reason why you can't breathe is because all of the punishment that you took, specifically to the left side of your chest from the punches, your left lung is collapsed." And he told me that if the fight would have gone on for 2 more rounds, that there's a chance that I'd be in intensive care. And I just I felt like such a failure. I mean, not only had I let down my fans and my family, but now here I am, totally broke and totally broken. And I'm laying in this hospital bed. The doctor leaves, closes the door, and it's just me. Like, I'm just by myself. And I felt so just like ashamed. Like, I'd made my family and my brothers and my parents and my students and my friends, like, I'd made them watch that shit. Like, I subjected them to that, and I felt so guilty about it. And then I'm just like feeling so low. Like, how am I going to pay for this shit? Not only did I not make the $250, but I probably racked up 20 times that in medical expenses. And like, I didn't see any way out, man. I didn't see how I was going to come out of this. And for whatever reason, I was laying there in this hospital bed. And I remember asking myself this question, and I asked myself, how am I doing? Like, just like a check-in, how am I doing? And that's when it happened, man. It was like the answer that I got back immediately was, I'm fine. And I thought, okay. I mean, they hadn't put me on drugs or anything, but I was starting to doubt my sanity, because they said the first question is, how am I doing? And the answer that I get back is, I'm fine. And I ask myself, like, I'm having this conversation in my head, and I'm thinking, well, if I just got my ass destroyed, if I've got a collapsed lung and this concussion, and I'm totally broke, and now I'm in debt, and now, I mean, everybody watching me get demolished tonight, and yet the answer that I'm getting back is, I'm fine? Well, then who's the I that got his ass whipped, and who's the I that is fine? And that question was like plugging into cosmic Google, and all this shit starts downloading. And like, I start getting these answers like fast and furious, and it's like, I am not my body. I have a body, but I am not my body. And it just like kept going, and I started, I mean, just like the next thing that came was that I have a body, but this body is animated by this energy. Just like a light is lit up by the electricity, but when the electricity is withdrawn, the matter of the light bulb, the molecules in the light bulb, are still the exact same thing. So the body is a vessel that this universal energy expresses into. And this is what I'm getting in the hospital bed, like one thought after another. And it's like this energy that animates my body, this universal intelligence, this source energy, this force called God, is expressing itself through my finite physical self. And that energy is timeless. That energy is permanent. It's pure. It's positive. It's powerful. It always has been, and it always will be. Like, this is the shit that's coming through, and that I really, through journaling over the next couple of weeks, really got clear on. And just like that, like in a matter of minutes, I felt every bit of fear and guilt and concern and worry and shame just completely disappear. It was like the light had been turned on, and I realized how much time I'd spent worrying about shit that just didn't matter. I worried about what people thought of me. I worried about, am I going to pay my bills? I worried about all this kind of stuff that had nothing to do with the larger life experience that I was on this planet to accomplish and to express and to experience. So I came out of the hospital that night, and yeah, it took a few months to recover, and it took me a while to pay everything off and all of that. But that day is the day that I really stopped being afraid. And of course I still had concerns and fears and things, but I can honestly say since that night in the hospital bed, I've never been worried about where things are going to come from, and I've never been worried about what people think of me. I've never been worried because I trust that energy and I trust that intuition to create good in the world, and my job is to stay out of the way and just let it happen.
So do you think it's possible that an individual, without going to that kind of physical intensity, right? So like my story, along the same lines, a lot of pain, divorces, cancer, wired shut for 6 months, torn Achilles tendons, broken collarbones, fights,
Yeah.
just tons and tons of physical, just really intense learning. And I notice there's a lot of very powerful spiritual leaders, individuals who have been able to hold the space authentically and consciously in their own world, come from a lot of pain, sexual abuse, a lot of physical abuse. Do you think it's possible a person can get to this place, in your experience, without all of the pain in the form and the quantities with which guys like you and I took it on? And this is a question I get asked all the time because I tell my story, and somebody's listening to your story right now, and they're going, "Holy shit, this guy was being given the Iliad when he was 7. His parents were essentially saying, go hunt from the time you were a kid. My parents were, force feeding me with bullshit of, you can't do this stories for my whole life." And then they get to the point of, man, he's a martial artist. He's fighting in friggin' no-holds-barred cage fights, collapsing lungs. God's talking to him when the lungs collapsed. I mean, this is some shit. And then they're going, dude, all I did was go to college and put on 45 pounds because I drank too much beer.
Right.
What advice on that side? And then, do you feel like it's possible that a person could arrive at a place of this beingness without it?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Talk to that for a second.
Absolutely. I've spent my life since that time in the hospital really understanding fear and doing everything I could to understand fear, to be able to illuminate the illusion around fear, and to be able to identify fear for what it is. As the old cliche goes, it's false evidence appearing real. I think most people's reaction to fear is a different acronym. It stands for fuck everything and run. That's how most people
I like it.
So that's how most people respond to it. But there's two kinds of fear. There's rational fear and there's irrational fear. And it's irrational fear that governs most people's lives. So to answer your question, and everybody, if you're listening to this and you've got something in your life that you want to accomplish, but you're not doing it, I'm here to tell you the reason is irrational fear. So I was given a gift that night of going through this intense time, just as you were, and everybody's got a story. But here's the thing. What I realized that night is that this energy that animates my particular physical form, it animates everybody. That's who you are. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you have the ears to hear and the brain to perceive the words that you're hearing right now in this moment, then that means that you are that energy too. And life doesn't have any inherent purpose. The purpose of life is to figure out your own purpose. The meaning of life is to determine and to define your own meaning. But it would be a fucked up practical joke if we lived in a world where you could dream something and imagine it and want it, and not have the ability to have it come true in your physical experience. I don't believe that God's a practical joker. I think that we're born with the ability to perceive and to discern, this is more powerful than this, I want this, I don't want this. That's a power of choice that everybody has in their life. What it comes down to is, will you make this moment a defining moment or not? Will you continue to delay your desires until the future? Will you continue to justify and to make stories that make it okay for you to stay where you're at? I mean, the difference in life is really just the difference in standards and expectation. So it doesn't matter whether you're 5 pounds overweight or 55 pounds overweight. It doesn't matter if you are completely bankrupt or if you're completely abundance. In abundance, the truth is that if you're alive and you can hear these words, there's more in store for you. And all the shit that you may have been through and all the stuff that you may want that hasn't shown up yet, it has been amassing in this vibrational escrow. And it is like right on the other side of the door for you. And all you have to do is be the person and take the actions that allow that abundance to come to you. And I hear it all the time. You and I have had this conversation, Garrett, and I have this with my other high-level clients, is that the hardest part is knowing how easy it actually is. And when you can surrender to your purpose, when you can surrender to that larger part of you, to that being that you're squeezed into this physical experience of a body for, if you can surrender to that purpose, then everything you've ever wanted is going to come true in your life. And you got to do the steps and you got to do the things. But at the end of the day, you are unlimited. You are limitless. You are a limitless being, and you're made of love and you're made of light. And that may not feel like the case right now, and that's totally cool. But that doesn't change the truth of who you are.
So the piece that I'm hearing then is this ability to surrender fear. The irrational experience of fear was what you were describing as you were sitting there in the fight and you're like, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, fear, fear, fear. And this other message coming in and saying, no, you're okay, creating this question. Any tips or strategies or techniques that you can think of, given the context of what you covered so far, that would allow someone to deal with, maybe it's a life of addiction of I am an addict to irrational fear. I like to fucking make love to it every single day. I like to make love to my irrational fears and then not do shit. Mental masturbation over and over and over again. So what thoughts or ideas as we kind of come into the final parts of the show today would you have for our viewers?
Sure. So here's what it comes down to. When we identify fears as one of two categories, there's only rational and irrational fears. Like I've done skydiving and I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was a lot of fun. I would never jump out of a plane without a parachute. I think Travis Pastrana did that in a Red Bull commercial, but I wouldn't do it. So that's a rational fear that I feel serves to keep me alive. So, but most fears are irrational. So rational, this is another writer downer for people listening, but rational fears keep you alive. Irrational fears keep you from living. So as a practical action step, finding out what it is that you're scared of, and then doing something to prove to yourself that it's irrational. Finding something that you're afraid of that is an irrational fear. It's not going to cause you physical harm. It's not going to drain your bank account or hurt your body or destroy your relationship. It's not going to do any of those, but it's an irrational fear. You've got to put something on your calendar, and today, to get over that. So that, Tony Robbins has this very popular quote that the past doesn't equal the future. And I get where he's coming from with that, and I've done a lot of Tony stuff, and he's got a lot of good stuff. But I disagree completely with that. The past exactly equals the future. Whatever you did yesterday, you want to know what this year is going to be like? Look at 2013. Look a year back and see what kind of year you had in 2013. Now project forward to this year. That's exactly what you're going to have, except you're going to be a year older. You want to know what next week is going to be like? Look at last week. So I don't believe that you can have a different future unless you create a different past. And how do we do that? Because we don't have time machines yet. You need to create a different past. That means you need to do something today that is so radical and such a shock to your comfort zone, assuming, of course, that it's an irrational fear that you're dealing with. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. Do something that makes your knees shake, that makes your palms sweat, that puts your heart in your throat, that gets your skin all clammy, and go and do it. And when you go to bed at night, you will have done something different, and you'll wake up in the morning with a new past. You repeat that for a couple of days, and all of a sudden you'll realize that the shit you are afraid of is a fucking illusion. It does not exist. So some practical tactics. Call somebody that you've been holding a grudge against for years. Call them up and say, hey, it's me. And the reason I'm calling you is because I was thinking about how angry I've been at you. And then I realized that for me to be angry at you is like me drinking poison and waiting for you to die. And I'm calling you right now to tell you that I was angry. I'm not anymore. I forgive you. You did the best you could with what you had at the moment. So did I. And we're just two people making our way through this world. I don't require anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I just want to tell you that I forgive you. Have a great life. The power that will be unleashed from that single phone call will be the wind that launches your ship to the next destination. That's a practical tactic.
Huge. And there are plenty of situations as you're watching this, plenty of situations. Relationships with family, relationship with past clients, relationship with past business partners, current business partners, children, individuals that you've been avoiding. Everybody's got their list until they don't, which is the list of people they refuse to have a conversation with so they can guarantee that they stay stuck in irrational fear and don't do shit about creating a life that, let alone would cover one dimension of life, let alone the entire conversation of having it all. Now, Jesse, for time's sake, we're going to need to wrap our show, but let's come back to a couple of things here. You are up to a lot of things right now. We talked about the mind vitamins that individuals can get on the list, participate with, and even invest in, found at jesseelder.com. I know before the show you and I talked about there were some other things that you had. You had a program that you rolled out that worked really, really well in your first beta test. It worked fantastically well. The results were off the charts, and you're doing something, it sounds like, similar. Take a few minutes to talk about what you're up to now.
Yeah.
And what individuals watching this, both my tribe here with the Warrior Movement and those who are being shared this episode of here Wake Up TV might be able to do to take the next step with you.
Sure. So back in January, I just put something out on Facebook that I'd never done before. I've always done either very specific training and coaching for the martial arts world or conversations like you and I have, high value, high impact conversations with wildly successful entrepreneurs, but I'd never done something that was strictly around how to think in a way that your life continually upgrades. So I did a post on Facebook, said, if you're interested, message me. We had 255 people say, yes, I want more. 55 of them ended up signing up in a program which is called the Upgraded Life. And we had people from 8 different countries that over 6 sessions really became a very powerful, tightly knit community around this idea that if you can want something, you can have it. But there's a way of thinking, there's a way of doing that will either repel that or will attract it. And so that's what I teach. It was so successful that I decided to do it again. And on March 19th, we'll be launching the next version of the Upgraded Life. The first people that are going to have access to it will be alumni, people that already went through that first training program. But if anybody, as your follower, anybody who's a fan of Wake Up Warrior, the entire movement, I've set up a link just this morning, actually, for everybody. And if you are listening to this, you want to go to jesseelder.com/upgrade, jesseelder.com/upgrade, and it's password protected because it's only for people from here, but the password is easy. It's upgrade, all lowercase, one word, upgrade, and that will give you a registration link to be able to be one of the people that are involved in the program. It starts March 19th, and we'll be covering as much as is humanly possible over 6-7 hours of training. It does happen. The training will be live. It'll be on GoToMeeting, and there will be recordings made available for all the students of the course. My private coaching, as you're aware, is not a cheap thing. I have a client this year who will invest $110,000 to coach with me this year. My lowest paying private client will invest $36,000 this year. And I'm not saying that to you're trying to make an impression or whatever, but just within the context of the material that you'll be getting with the Upgraded Life, this is really next level stuff that you won't find taught in this way, in this format. So the price should be $3,000. It's not. It's $297 for people that register through that link that I just shared. So if people want to do it, they can sign up today. You'll need to give me probably a day or two to get back to you by email because I'm doing it all individually right now. But jesseelder.com/upgrade, and the password is upgrade, and they can get in on the Upgraded Life.
There you go. Well, the fun thing about it, too, is that, and no bullshit, I'm one of the guys that pays you quite a bit of money to be able to play in the game. And I also run programs that are super high-end also. And when I have nothing right now, like nothing, that starts less than $30,000. And so for me, when I see mentors come out and reach out and begin to put programs out into the marketplace that will support individuals in being able to go to the next level at investments where, shit, there was times, we've all fucking been there. There's times where I literally could not. I would have to sit here in an environment like this on Wake Up TV, get very excited, very titillated, very ready, okay, shit, ready, set, let's go. And then I'd pull out my debit card and go, damn it, I'm really constrained right now. I just want to get started. And my first 3 or 4 years were spent in the trenches with mentors and books and programs like this level at 97 to 197, and being able to experience 297 up that $500 range of being able to just experience content, which I think is so important to be able to shift the way that you're thinking. So again, if you're interested and you're a person who, and we're going to be running this out a couple different times, a couple different ways here over the next week, until next week's episode, you can check this out again at jesseelder.com/upgrade. jesseelder.com/upgrade. We'll throw that link here underneath this episode as well at wakeupwarrior.tv. And then password is upgrade to get yourself in part of that group. If you delay on that, I'm sure some of you can Facebook Jesse on that too, and private message him, and he'll get you that link if you forget the password. So, Jesse, it's been a pleasure having you today. It's been awesome to have you on the show. You know, yeah, definitely we could have done like 5 days of workshops. I think we're gonna have to put something together in. I love San Antonio. It's beautiful, but the new Wake Up Warrior headquarters is officially about 112 feet from the beach in Laguna Beach. It's badass. It's in the middle of the art district. So I may have to bring you to Laguna Beach. As much as I love San Antonio, I'm going to bring you to Laguna Beach, to the Wake Up Warrior headquarters, and we're going to do some fun stuff there. So look for that. Our viewers here over in 2014, me and Jesse doing some stuff together at that level. Again, jesseelder.com/upgrade to check out his program, and jesseelder.com to get the mind vitamins. And again, I'd encourage you to hit him up on Facebook at facebook.com/jesseelder. Jesse, any last thoughts before we wrap today's show?
Just huge appreciation to you, brother. This has been, in a lot of ways, a dream come true. I mean, I several years ago, after I sold on my karate schools and was working with just the highest level entrepreneurs, I knew that there was a bigger message, and I think that's what really attracted me to you and to work with you in the capacity that we do, is because you are riding the wave of expanding consciousness that's happening on the planet right now, and people are starting to realize that they no longer have to settle, and you're leading the charge with that. And I'm privileged to be part of that same expanded consciousness and to be riding that wave too. So thank you for the invite today.
You got it, brother. All right, my friends, we are wrapping up today's episode. This is episode number 8 here at Wake Up TV. Yes, for those of my past, back in the days, who used to say that Garrett J. White is one big damn consistently inconsistent badass motherfucker. I'm telling you right now, we are rolling these shows out every single week. We're at 8 now in 2014, just like I told you we would. We've got some great guests coming up next week with Dr. Ken Christensen, and then 2 weeks from now with Brian Horn from Authority Alchemy, and we've just got a great list this year in 2014 of badass mentors. Today we had Jesse Elder. Again, check him out at jesseelder.com/upgrade for the program that he's rolling out here in March, and you can check out the Mind Vitamins at jesseelder.com. And as always, one location in the palm of your hand on demand, 100% of the content, 100% of the time for the Wake Up Warrior movement, teaching you how to be more, do more, and ultimately suck less by living the warrior's way to having it all in body, being balanced, and business. You can do that for free today by jumping over to the iTunes or Google Play Store, download the Wake Up Warrior app, and give yourself access to this show, as well as a bunch of the bonus tips, tools, tricks, and transcriptions we give you from the radio shows and the TV shows every single week. So this is Garrett J. White signing off with my boy and mentor, Jesse Elder, here on this episode number 8 of Wake Up TV, reminding you the power in today's marketplace and modern-day warrior comes down to the simple formula of authenticity. Be real, get raw, and stay relevant with a ruthless commitment to creating big-ass results today.